Hang on, Nathan Jr. We gonna go pick up Daddy. What movie's that from? Okay, I'll tell you. It's Raising Arizona. It's one of my favorites. Great movie. Very, very funny. Great cast. So, welcome back to Barrel Full of Daryl. I am Daryl. And what I like to do on this show is discuss music and movies and maybe have a little fun, do a few other things. In the last episode, I gave a shout out to all my listeners located in North and South America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Soon afterward, I received a comment from a constant listener, my friend, Electric Iguana, saying, "Hello from Antarctica." I was shocked. See, my podcast service, it gives me analytics that tell me the continents, countries, and cities where downloads occur, but it does not include Antarctica. And this is likely due to the fact that there is not a native or permanent populace there. Reportedly, the only human tenants are scientists, support staff, tourists on a temporary basis. Anywho, here's a shout out to Antarctica, and thank you, scientist Electric Iguana, for the surprising intel. So now I have an audience on 6 of the 7 continents. Come on, Australia, jump in the barrel, boys. Okay, music. AC/DC. I'm sure you've heard of them. 17 studio albums, and they all sound the same. Kid you not. Okay, that's enough for AC/DC. Let's talk about Sinead O'Connor. You may not know her. That's why I'm here to tell you. So, she was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1966, and she died in London, England in 2023. She was a singer, songwriter, musician, and an activist. Before I get into her music, let me give you a little bit of her background and upbringing. In 2021, 2 years before her death, she wrote a memoir called Rememberings. And she wrote that she was regularly beaten by her mother, who also taught her to steal from the Catholic Mass collection plate and from charity tins. At the age of 13, she went to live with her father, but 2 years later, due to truancy and shoplifting, she was sent to live for 18 months at a, quote, training center, unquote, run by the Order of Our Lady of Charity. It was basically an asylum for troubled girls. Well, there she did manage to work on her writing and her music. And because of this, she was given some leniency. But she resented the imposed conformity of the asylum. And she states that as punishment there, you were sent upstairs to live in the old folks' home, where it was pitch black and reeked of shit and vomit. She also stated that she would never again experience such panic and terror and agony. Now, her mother was killed in a car crash in 1985, after which Sinead wrote a letter to the Irish Times that contained repeated accusations of child abuse by her parents. Her brother Joseph, who was a writer, agreed about their mother's extreme and violent abuse, both emotional and physical. So in 1984, she placed an ad for a band in a local paper, and she teamed up with this guy named Colm Farrelly, and they recruited other band members, creating the band that they called Tom Tom McCoot. This brought her some attention from the music industry, and she soon signed on with the record label. But it was at this point that Sinead became kind of outspoken about the music industry and politics in general. Her first album, The Lion and the Cobra, was released in 1987, and it was sensational. It had several hits in the US and in the UK. She was nominated for a Grammy in the Best Female Rock Vocal category, and she performed at the 31st Annual Grammy Awards. Let me say this here. Sinead maintained a shaved head throughout her career as a statement against the traditional views of femininity. She also typically had an angry expression, and she wore shapeless or unusual clothing. And when she performed at the 31st Grammys, she had painted on her bald head the logo for the hip-hop band Public Enemy, whose award had been given to them off-screen. Let me also say this right here. Her voice is unique and singular. It's mostly angelic, but has quite a large octave range. Now, I'm not an expert on vocal ranges, so I'll just leave it at that. But her voice is beautiful. Her second album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, that's the title, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, was released in 1990. Critical reviews. It brought her worldwide attention. She was praised for her voice and original songs. But there's one song on there called Nothing Compares to You. It was written by Prince, and that was her international breakthrough hit. And let me say, this is my favorite Sinead album. Every song, great. Some of them are political, but that's okay. They're all outstanding. She was nominated for 4 Grammys for this album, and she won for Best Alternative Music Performance. Well, being Sinead, she refused to attend the ceremony or accept the award, criticizing the industry for promoting money over artistic merit. Yeah, she's quite the nonconformist. So in October of 1982, she appeared and sang on Saturday Night Live. Afterwards, she tore up a photo of Pope John Paul II as a protest against the Roman Catholic Church's child abuse. Now, this was about 10 years before the Catholic Church publicly acknowledged their internal issues with child abuse. So at that time, it was not widely known about this issue, but Sinead knew. Regardless, she took a lot of heat and hatred based on this act of protest, and it nearly ended her career. It certainly sidelined it for a while. She later stated that the Catholic Church bore some responsibility for the abuse she suffered as a child, and that the church had been abusing children for years. In her memoir, she wrote that she did not regret this act, and it's more important for her to be a protest singer than a pop star. After all this, 1999, she became a Catholic priest and affirmed herself as a Christian. Well, 9 years later, in 2018, she converted to, well, it's more than 9 years, isn't it? About 20 years later, she converted to Islam and stated that she never wanted to live among white people again, and that anyone who was not Muslim is mentally ill. So, later on, she recanted all those statements, by the way. Apologized for them. So, yeah, she had some mental health issues and had been diagnosed with complex PTSD and borderline personality disorder. She had a lot of trauma in her life, and I think it shows in her music and in her personality. But if you set all that aside, she was an outstanding vocalist and writer. And during her career, she released 10 studio albums and contributed to numerous musical scores. Now, if you have the option, if you have the means, you should listen to the entire album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. At one point in my career, a friend strongly suggested that I listen to this album, and I gave him a look that said, "You're out of your fucking mind." He insisted and said, "Just try it." So I did, and holy shit. It's still in my music rotation to this day. And be sure to listen to the songs that I've dropped on the playlist. I'll also say that my wife and I visited Ireland a few years ago, and I know it's a touristy thing to say, but we actually had a meal in a restaurant where Sinead was a waitress when she was in her teens. Okay, so I believe it is now time for a word from our sponsor. Be right back. Well, howdy, y'all. This here is Cletus Clay Calhoun. You may recall that I am the owner and sole employee at the Calhoun Funeral Home and Taxidermy Service here in Scratch Ankle, Alabama. Now, I've had an exciting week, let me tell you. Henry Ray Cratchit was out hunting deer, and he shot a big old buck with a big old rack of antlers. Well, Henry Ray approached the deer laying there, and all of a sudden that deer just jumped up, sprung at him, and gored him with his antlers. Both were found tangled up, dead at the scene. So I got to embalm Henry Ray. Fortunately, the venison had turned, so I stuffed the deer's head, and I hope to sell it at the flea market next to the Piggly Wiggly this weekend. It's an 8-pointer, so I should get a nice price for it. Oh, hell, I might just keep it and hang it on the wall. That way, when you come to visit, I can show you this big buck's stuffed head. Anywho, this is Cletus Clay Calhoun signing off, and I hope to meet you soon. Bye. And we're back. Okay, movie. Let's stick with the Irish theme. I googled films that were set in Ireland, and I got a really good list that includes My Left Foot, In the Name of the Father, and both of those star Daniel Day-Lewis. There's also The Crying Game, Michael Collins, and The Commitments. Those are all pretty heavy-duty, serious shit, except for The Commitments. I really like that movie, and I urge you to watch it. It was released in 1991. It was directed by the famous Alan Parker and based on the book written by Roddy Doyle. Now, if you're a reader, all his books are worthy. He's Irish, Roddy Doyle. This movie is about a group of Irish young adults struggling to become a soul band. Yeah, Ireland and soul music. So there's some really good music in this film. The lead singer in the band has Joe Cocker voice, and he imitates his facial and body tics and expressions. Does a really good job. A lot of fun to hear him and watch him sing. Now, they have a full band comprised of drums, bass, guitar, saxophone, trumpet, and 3 female backup singers. As you can imagine, it's hard to find soul musicians in Dublin, but the manager, after dozens of tryouts, puts a band together. And while they're discussing the soul genre, The fact came up that it's mostly black musicians that do soul music, and the manager says, well, here we are in Dublin, even northern Dublin, and we are considered the black people of Ireland. So say it. I'm black and I'm proud. And they all started chanting that. It was pretty cool. So the manager struck gold when he found the trumpet player Joey the Lips Fagan, who had unlikely stories of playing with famous soul musicians and rock bands in the U.S. Joey helps to train the other members in the style of soul, and they slowly build an audience. However, tensions are high among all the band members, and kind of stays that way throughout the movie. Before their next gig, and it's a big gig coming up, Joey convinces the manager that he can get Wilson Pickett to join them on stage. So he goes off and apparently meets with Pickett, and then he comes back and says, the deal is sealed. Wilson Pickett will join us on stage at this gig. So the manager spreads the word to local journalists about this event. Well, showtime comes and Pickett is a no-show. After the show's over, all the band members are backstage arguing and even physically fighting. The manager's purely dejected at this point, and he says, that's it, I give up. So walking down the street away from the pub, a limo approaches, and after rolling the window down, the driver asks the manager the location of the pub. The manager points back behind him and says, it's that way, but they're closed. So the driver turns his head and asks, back to the hotel, Mr. Pickett, and then he drives away. This movie is streaming on Peacock, in case you are a subscriber. I watched it for about the third time, and again, I really got into it. Characters are awesome, the music awesome, and the story arc is awesome as well. So let me give you an alternative. If you have Netflix, there's another good Ireland-based movie that you can watch. It's released in 2016. It's titled Sing Street, S-I-N-G Street, and it's basically a coming-of-age story about a 15-year-old boy, Connor, who wants to impress the local beautiful girl. So he decides to form a band and rounds up 4 of his friends whose talent is quite raw to begin with. Now, the band name Sing Street is a take on the name of their school, or the location of the name of their school, Sing Street, S-Y-N-G-E. And that's an actual street in Dublin. So they do a demo tape with a cover of the song Rio by Duran Duran. Connor has an older brother with quite a bit of musical experience and hundreds of vinyl albums. So Connor plays the demo for him, after which his brother gets up off the couch and opens the bedroom door to let the stink out of the room. But his brother takes Connor under his wing and teaches him what he knows about music. And he also tells Connor that they shouldn't be a cover band because they'll end up going nowhere. He also urges him to write his own lyrics and music, which Connor does. And his songs are actually very good. They make another demo tape. Connor takes a copy to the girl he wants to impress, Rafina. He asks her to listen to it and then to star in the music video that they're planning to make. Now, on the set of the video shoot, Rafina shows up late, but she's all dressed up and looking sexy. And she looks at the band members and says, no, this is not going to work. And she starts putting makeup on them, each of them. And that becomes a thing for them. Well, with each new song and demo tape, Connor takes a copy to Rafina, and she's warming up to him. And one particular song made her cry, and she told Connor it was beautiful and fantastic. So the band is truly coming along, and their songs are well written, well played. However, Rafina has the dreams to become a model, and she leaves for London with her, quote, boyfriend, unquote. Of course, Connor is broken up about this, but the band continues on. Eventually, Rafina returns after having no luck in London and realizing that her boyfriend was only interested in riding her coattails. Spoiler alert, Connor and Rafina fall in love, and they go off together to London. Connor's carrying all his demo tapes with him to hopefully find a record label. So that's it. If you have Peacock, don't miss out on the commitments. If you can't commit to Peacock, check out Sing Street on Netflix. Everybody does subscribe to Netflix, right? Okay, word of the week. I'm going to pronounce it the way it's spelled. Microbiome. Microbiome. It's a community of microorganisms such as fungi, bacteria, and viruses that exist in a particular environment. Now, the human body is a microbiome that houses 37 trillion microbial cells. That's about 2% of our body mass and 3 times more than human cells. Also, 3/4 of your microbiome comes from your mother at birth. When you're up there in the womb, all warm and comfy, that's a sterile space. When you get pushed out, you get bathed in vaginal microbes. Don't worry, this is a good thing and prepares your body for a healthy start in life. Also, you ingest around 1 million microbes in every gram of food you eat. That's enough about microbes. If you want to learn more, just ask Uncle Google. He's got tons of information. By the way, there is a really good book about the human body written by Bill Bryson titled The Body. And believe me, it will blow your mind. It's a very good read. Okay, joke of the week. The prison warden gets on the PA and says, "Dear prisoners, I have good news and bad news. The good news is today is the day you change underwear. The bad news is you change with each other." Question of the week. Last week I asked, why do we pronounce bicycle and motorcycle differently? Well, it's due to the prosodic structure of the words, which relates to rhythm and stress. Basically, it's the number of syllables in a word. So bicycle has 3 syllables, and the first syllable has the primary stress, while the other 2 are unstressed. Motorcycle has 4 syllables, and the primary stress is on the first and third syllables, while the second and third are unstressed. Motorcycle. Okay. It's the same with unicycle. Well, even with all that, I still don't like it. The snide part of me wants to call it a motorcycle. New question of the week. Are you ready? What is a mass extinction? And historically, how many have there been on planet Earth? I'll say that again. What is a mass extinction? And historically, how many have there been? My buddy Electric Iguana probably knows the answer to that. Okay, a thought of the week. Act as if you do. Sorry, let me start that over. Act as if what you do makes a difference, because it does. But don't forget about the BFOD playlist on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. This is getting long. I hope you're enjoying it. And you may contact me by clicking on the send me a text button in the episodes or directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget, you can support this show. If you're loving it, you can support it. There's a feature that allows you to send me a little spare change each month. $3, $5, $8, or $10. So with your donation, I could buy anything from a gas station hot dog, maybe even gas station sushi. Taste it now. Well, thank you for listening. Are you not entertained?